Hello. I am PME or Worries, or if you want, you can call me Matthias or Matthew. That's my real name. That works for you better. But basically, we're going to be talking a little bit of therapy today and talking a little bit about a topic that you brought to my attention. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Lena,
Hello, Lena.
and I'm 24 years old, and I'm basically a pretty confused person.
Mm-hmm.
That's more or less something that best describes me. It's not how I usually describe myself to other people, but when I think about myself, I think that I'm really, really confused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean that.
That would be.
Oh, go on.
I just said that would be like the shortest description ever.
Yeah. I mean that's. I mean that gets into what we're gonna be talking about because so what you sent to me is like you have a lack of self-esteem that blocks me or like blocks you in everyday areas of life. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So why don't you like start like take wherever you're comfortable, however much you want to talk about it. Just try to describe the situation to me. Why? How does this lack of self-esteem express itself, and how do you like experience it? That's probably a good place to start.
Okay, so I would just like to say firstly that I don't think about it on a daily basis. And
Mhm.
up until recently, I wasn't aware of how crippling it was
Mhm.
on a daily basis actually, because I think that I am an outgoing person and I don't have any problems making friends, and overall I have a life that is okay, that I'm happy with. But as it happens with everyone, I
Mhm.
do have some areas that I have problems with,
Yeah. Okay.
and I could never figure out what was blocking me because I never thought of myself. I never thought that I had low self-esteem because I don't know. I don't I don't think about it on a daily basis. I wasn't aware that I had low self-esteem. And
Mhm.
then a silly situation happened and I realized it. It's always the little details that give something big away, isn't it? So
Yeah.
for me, it was because I'm used to, I don't know, to being intimate with friends and with family, but when it comes to relationships, I'm a bit different.
Mhm.
So I figured it out through a relationship. I just figured out that it's crippling me in that sense, in the sense of being able to, I don't know, just connect with somebody, be completely myself. Because around friends and family, I am myself. But when I meet someone new, and when it's a romantic relationship, then I'm a completely different person.
Okay.
And I wonder why. Because I get this, I'm a completely different person because I'm afraid to show the good parts of me.
Mhm.
And my friends used to tell me, you act like a bitch. Why? And then I realized it's the insecurities. And it started with that, but then it spread to other areas of my life where I realized that I'm actually kind of afraid of failure, or that I don't believe in myself, because sometimes I like to stay in the same place
Mhm.
and tell myself that I'm comfortable with staying in that same place, but actually it's just the fear of not succeeding and actually not believing in myself. And I don't know, I would like to figure out what the root for this is.
Mhm.
And I'm sure I'm not the only one that
Oh
has the
yeah,
same problem.
it sounds like a very common issue. Like especially this thing you like talk about experiencing a like a the experience of being different with your friends and family compared to like other situations. That's especially common. Like there's this idea of like we wear different masks in different social settings, and the masks we wear in certain social settings may not be the ones like we want to wear, but it's whichever ones we just kind of got into for whatever reason, and that can like with family, for example, it can come about for really bad reasons. Maybe we've had a traumatic experience that's like left us thinking like this is the only appropriate way for me to act around my family. That's a very common one. That I've struggled with that as well. That I've heard it from a lot of people. That's sometimes how that starts. So when did you first become aware of this like scent?
Believe it or not, it was a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still processing it.
Mhm.
because it was the first time that I had a thought that doesn't look like it's not something. I'm usually optimistic, and I'm usually the one that gives advice to my friends,
Mhm.
and I'm always looking on the bright side. But then I just realized while talking to a friend, and for the first time, I was at the other side. I was the one that was given advice, not the one giving it. And I just realized that I'm so optimistic when it comes to other people, but when it comes to me, I imagine the worst.
Mhm.
So, just to give you a specific detail, just to explain the situation, it was about a relationship, and it was about a guy that has been texting me for over half a year and has been trying to get to know me. And I was like, no, I don't want to, I'm not interested. But at the
Mhm.
end, I just decided to give that person a chance. And then I just realized that I couldn't
Mhm.
figure out what did he like about me and why was he so persistent.
Ooh, yeah.
So instead of thinking, okay, maybe he really likes me,
Mhm.
I
That sounds
thought
very
about
familiar.
yeah, I thought about negative things about I don't know. I just imagined the worst case scenarios,
Yeah, yeah.
and from there, that's just it's a small thing. It's a small situation
Mhm.
that got me thinking about all the other things that I can change, about the habits that I've been trying to change and I'm unable to, about the bigger steps that I wanted to take career-wise and I haven't still taken, and I came to the conclusion that it's all because of low self-esteem. And
Mhm.
before that, I would say I'm not a person with low self-esteem. I would say that I'm okay, that I'm not perfect, but that I love myself. And I just realized that that's just something that I've been telling to myself, but I didn't really
Yeah, you
believe it.
didn't practice it.
Because-
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, because I realized that when I just thought, how could somebody fall in love with me?
Mm.
If a friend of mine told me that, I would be, I don't know, I would be completely estranged by that
Yeah,
thought. I would say, how
exactly.
could you think that? But when it comes to me, it was just eye opening. Oh, eye opening. That thought was eye opening. It was the beginning of it all.
Yeah, that's a very common one. Like the idea that we are very good at giving advice to other people, but when it comes to
Yep.
following that advice ourselves, we're horrible at it. That's very normal and very human. I experience that too a lot. Like you can imagine the kind of advice I give out running the account I do, but I mean, I'm a person too. I have my struggles, and that's completely normal.
We all do.
Yeah. So you talk about experiencing this kind of like you're you're a very good person that people go to for advice, but if when the experience comes that like do you ever seek out advice? That's a good place to start, I think.
Mhm. I try to.
Mhm.
I have a best friend that I'm really close to, and she's someone that has seen me in different situations, and I'm not ashamed of her.
Mhm.
But for example, with this situation,
Yeah.
I did try, and then I just at one point I felt blocked. I couldn't acknowledge all of the feelings I had, be it positive or negative. I'm always thinking about what the other person will think.
Mhm.
So it's not like I feel like I'm lying because I can't tell the whole truth. And then because I don't want
Right.
to lie to my best friend, then
Mhm.
I just stop talking altogether
Yeah.
because I can bring myself to just tell the bare truth, to just say I feel like shit, I
Mhm.
feel like crap, or I'm sad, or I just acknowledge all the human things.
Mhm.
I try and hide all the vulnerability, and then play this play the strong person or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that's I mean a lot of people experience that, especially if you're a person who's used to being the one who gives advice because we
Yeah,
have this we very quickly build this idea inside of ourselves that if we're the person that people go to for advice, we should be we should be the person who's stable enough to not necessarily need advice. And
yeah.
that's a really toxic idea to get into your head. Like because
And I tell myself that I can fix it myself. I don't
yeah.
need other people.
But
But it turns out I can't.
I mean yeah, and like that's the thing that like, you know something to internalize is like nobody really like goes through life entirely on their own. Like we're people, we're social animals, and we can't do everything on our own. That's why we have society. That's why we have friends. That's why we have family. The whole idea is to build this like understanding inside of yourself that it's okay to need help sometimes, and everyone does. Like you help people, so why shouldn't people help you too?
Yeah, I feel I when I distance myself, I
Mhm.
sometimes distance myself from the people in my life, and that's when I feel the worst.
Yeah.
And I don't always, not all of people know all of me.
Mhm.
So there are people in my life that don't know that I go through that kind of phases where I'm just I don't know, I just go into my shell,
Mhm.
and then it seems like I don't care or that I have better things to do because they don't know
Yeah.
that I do it when I feel the worst. But after a while, I get out of it. It's just like a recurring cycle of mine that I'm trying to break
Mhm.
because I don't want to keep doing that. To spend, I don't know, spend 10 days locked inside of my room and then just emerge from the from the cave and be like nothing's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Nothing's
And
wrong. I'm fine. Nothing's happened. Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to acknowledge it, so I am trying to talk more,
Mhm.
and
That's good.
I am trying to be more open and just to say, okay, I'm not feeling good. I'm not ready to talk about it
Mhm.
yet completely, but just so that you know, I'm not ignoring you. It's just that I'm not feeling good, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can
Just
talk about it
yeah.
later.
That's a great place to start. Like if you're not ready to talk about it, just tell people I'm having a really tough time. I'm not really ready to talk about it yet, but thank you for being there. That's I think everyone would
It's
appreciate that. That's a good place to go.
it's hard for me to let go of the persona that I have created,
Mhm.
the strong person.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a part of the problem
Mhm.
because usually nothing can touch me,
Mhm.
but it's not in a strong kind of way. It's just that I'm very tolerant and I'm very calm. So
Mhm.
when something chaotic happens, I'm the person that says chill out, it's not a
Yeah.
big deal, we can fix it. And when it comes to my problems, I'm aware that I don't have an external problem. I don't have something that's going on. I don't know. I don't have a difficult life story. I mean, I do have. I did have some things that happened that were bad, but it's not something that has scarred me for life,
Mhm.
as it is with people that have suffered more than I did. For example,
Mhm.
I'm aware that I have problem with a part of myself. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but
No,
there's
I
not an
think I get it.
external factor. I don't have anyone to blame. So
Yeah.
I have to work on myself. So it's not like I like to focus too much on
Mhm.
that. I don't like to focus too much on that problem. And most of the time I was completely unaware that I even had a problem.
Yeah.
It was just the way I was.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just your normal state of functioning. You just kind of just ignore
Yeah.
it until it becomes too big of a problem that you have to deal with it. I'm familiar with that for sure.
Yeah. So
Uh,
now I'm
no,
trying
yeah,
to
go.
find a way
Mhm.
to change. I mean, to acknowledge some things and just to find the steps that I need to take in order to change.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I've been just trying to do exactly the opposite of what I used to do. So, for example, if in past when somebody asked me what's wrong, I would say nothing.
Mhm.
Now I do the complete I try to do the complete opposite thing, and I just tell myself if I feel like at the core of it all, it's the fear of being hurt or of being laughed at or not being taken seriously. I don't know, a mixture of all of that.
Yeah, humiliation. That's the normal one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I just tell myself, it's like I rationalize it to myself. And when I try to convince myself to try and not hide
Mhm.
things, I just tell myself, okay, look at this as a social experiment or something
Yeah.
like.
I mean that's a good place to start for sure. And just treating it as something you're doing because you want to try it, like just to see how it feels to tell someone. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's still when the people that I know in real life, I think 95% of people have no idea
Mhm.
about what's going on. They just see me as this cheerful, outgoing person that has I have a job that I love. I
Mhm.
have a best friend that I know that really is my best friend. And I have a good relationship with my family. I love my family. So um when it comes to my job, it was something that I have done completely by myself. I have just changed my life overnight and started a new job, and it's something that I really, really love. So when you look at all of those aspects of my life, it looks like I'm doing great,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm doing perfectly. But one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about is just so that if somebody is listening to this, just to let them know that even though it seems like somebody is perfect, I don't want to say that I seem like I'm perfect, but from the outside, people would probably think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with me,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm a cheerful, happy person. And people often tell me that they are envious, that they're
Yeah.
jealous of my perspective or my life, or I don't know, my personality.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just like to tell them that, okay, I have problems too. I don't show them, but that doesn't mean I don't have them.
Yeah. For sure, that's a mindset you develop a lot when you're the person people go to for advice. It's like when people start telling you, "Oh, I'm so envious that you're so functional, you're so fun." You quickly
Yeah,
adopt it as
you're
like,
so
"Well, okay,
strong. Yeah.
it's just the truth that okay, I guess it's true about me, but it's not. It's a persona. And everyone has problems, and that's important to acknowledge for sure." So,
But how do you even let go of that persona? That's the biggest problem for me.
yeah,
How do I just stop being something that I've been for the last, I don't know, 24 years?
yeah,
Maybe not.
that's
How do you just change completely and just wake up one day and just I'm not that person anymore? That's
mm.
something that almost gives me panic attacks.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think there's not really like a one size fits all answer for stuff like that because it's gonna come down very much to how you see yourself as a person and how you would like other people to see you when you're done. Like change is a process, and as a process that means figuring out what's the end, like what's the goal.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I really, really like that perspective.
So
I
like
haven't,
to take an
I haven't
example.
really.
No, go on, go on.
I just said I haven't really thought about it like that. And continue, please.
Yeah. So when I started this whole like PME or worse thing, I was in a really bad place. I was really depressed. I was in a state where I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I was in a place where I was like I was very much in your shoes of I had nobody really to talk with when I had problems, which led to me bottling them up to a point where I was really really anxious and really really stressed all the time, which led to like I want to call it a breakdown. It's probably not like clinically, but I stopped going outside for like a week. I couldn't talk with anyone beyond like the bare minimum to seem functional. And what I realized from starting this account is like not like that's not an uncommon or unnatural response to the stress of like not having anyone to talk to. So that at that point, like okay, you start to rewire your brain. You start to think, well, what do I need to do differently? So I started by talking with people online like this, kind of like in a one-on-one format, usually over text normally, but saying like if I can meet a stranger and introduce myself in a different way and get them to see like the image that I actually want them to see of me rather than like the image I normally protect. Like I'm not this perfect person who's always stable. I'm actually a person with wants and desires, and I need care too. That was my starting point at least. Like meeting new people and trying to get them to see the kind of person I wanted to be.
Yeah,
Because from
I
there you can
really.
start to like work to say, well, okay, if I want to do this with my family, what do I need to change in how I interact with them to let them know about this stuff?
Well, in my society,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult to say that you are depressed
Yeah.
because people will not take you seriously.
Mm-hmm.
They will tell you, go out, have fun,
Oh yeah.
meet meet some new friends, get a drink, or I don't know, find a boy. That was the advice that was given to me
Oh yeah.
over and over again.
That's
And
even
it
better
just
when you're asexual. Trust me. It's just like, oh, you just need a girlfriend.
yeah,
I kind of don't want one. It's
yeah, when they tell you that that will solve all your
mm,
problems. And then that kind of um, feedback made
Mhm.
me just stop asking for advice altogether when I thought that I was depressed.
Mhm. Yeah, I can
So
understand that.
yeah, I just started feeling angry, and I'm not an angry person, but that just woke something up inside of me that I
Mhm.
have never met before. And when somebody would tell me something like that, I would just get the need to punch them straight in the face.
Mhm.
And then
You
I just thought, no, I never did. I never
No, no. I was
did.
gonna like ask like, can you like try to clarify a little how you felt? Like you wanted to punch them in the face, but why did you want to punch them in the face?
Because I felt like they haven't even been listening to what I'm saying, that they don't understand anything. I mean, not they didn't even try to understand. They didn't ask me why,
Mhm.
or they didn't ask me when did it start, or how could I help, or they didn't even say that sucks. There was like a one generic response.
Mhm.
It would be, I don't know, just like, you have five answers. I meant, you have five possible answers. Go out, spend some time in the sun, meet somebody new, watch a movie, and then all of the people that
Mhm.
I tried talking to would give me one of those five answers,
Yeah.
and I was just like, okay, I'm trying here. Please, would you? I just wanted somebody to tell me anything that wasn't those five answers,
For
those
sure.
five options, and that's what made me angry. It's the fact that nobody even listened to what I was saying.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not. I mentioned those kind. It was easier for me to mention that kind of stuff to people with who I wasn't so close with. So I didn't go to my family or my closest circle of friends. I would do that with people that I'm not so close with,
Okay.
and it was just easier for me. So later, when I did talk with when I did include my best friends and my closest circle of people and my family, they did understand.
Mhm.
So I figured out that that's what I was doing wrong. So I changed. After that is when I turned my life around. Came, I just put a goal in front of myself, and I just said, a year from now you will be a completely different person, and I am.
Mhm.
I'm not entirely different, but I am, because now I can't spend much time at home. I mean, I can, but it's not like I
You don't feel
well,
stuck at home. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like that anymore, which is I finally feel young and carefree most of the time. It's just sometimes when I think about that, life is a learning process, and when I just stop and think, okay, I have accomplished a lot of my goals.
Mhm.
What do I want to do next? Where can I do better? That's when I start thinking about all of this stuff that I mentioned, this low self-esteem problem
For sure.
and all of that. That's when it starts. But on a daily basis, I don't really talk or think about it.
Mhm.
It's just, and it's also sometimes when the situation makes me think about that. It's maybe, I don't know. It's when I'm talking with somebody, and then that person doesn't reply, and then you just start making movies in your head. And for me, it's usually something that's negative,
Mm.
and I just start thinking the worst about myself, and then I just stop and just
Yeah, that's very common with
yeah,
low self-esteem
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I tell myself, just okay, go back to reality. Don't go into your movies again.
Mhm.
And then I try to control myself, but since I know that that I have a problem with this,
Mhm.
I never know when I'm right and when I'm not.
Yeah,
So that's
like
confusing. It's
uh,
really confusing.
doubting your own judgment is also very common when you have low self-esteem for sure.
Yeah.
Um.
And
No, go on.
I also notice that sometimes people can easily influence me because of that, because I don't have a strong opinion,
For sure.
because I doubt myself. It's also because I have a very open mind, so I don't have, when I'm speaking with somebody, I'm not judgmental. I just pay attention to um to take their perspective into consideration and to try to understand it. And even
Mhm.
if I don't agree with it, I just try to understand it. So it's easy for people to manipulate me, and I'm really scared of that. So sometimes in situations when nobody's trying to manipulate me, think about it, and I say to myself, don't be stupid. And
Mm.
then that's what brings the worst in me, and that's when I start acting like not really myself, because I forget who I am. So I just have this mechanism. All of the people that you ask somebody about me, and the people that would have and something negative to say would be that people, the people that triggered that doubt in me.
Mhm.
And then I didn't realize it at the time. I sometimes realize it, I don't know, a month later. Tell to myself, you were such an asshole or something like that. But I don't always figure it out immediately. So it's something that I struggle with,
Yeah,
because
understandable.
I tend sometimes I tend to look for the negative, and for the bad things in people. I start to think that if you are a good person, that people will screw you over, and then that I need to be, I don't know,
Yeah,
be a bitch to
you need to be
succeed.
tough to survive. It's yeah.
Yeah. And I don't like that about myself. I don't like when I become like that, because you can't be happy with that mentality.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
can't.
if you think everyone else is miserable, then yeah, it's not really a great way to view other people in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. So those are some of the struggles that I
Mhm.
don't know. I just try to I try to work with,
Yeah.
work on.
I mean, if you
But
want
sometimes,
a few tools to work with on poor self-esteem, I have a few things you might want to try. It's
yeah,
um,
tell me.
yeah. So let's just straight off the bat, how does your inner monologue sound like when you talk to yourself in your head? Let's say, like, how do you talk about yourself in your head? Do you generally talk like positively about yourself? Like, I mean, when you look in the mirror, do you normally see like a positive person?
It depends on the day, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest. And I just recently realized that it also depends on how other people treat me.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not always. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I say hello, beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
and the next day I'll wake up and just it will be pink. So even look at the person in the mirror. It's a contrast, and that's what makes me so confused,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not miserable all the time. I don't feel like I have low self-esteem all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then on other days, it's just the opposite. So it's tiring,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like almost like two different persons. I mean, not exactly and not quietly like two different persons, but just as a way comparison, that the mirror thing and the monologue. I don't know. Sometimes I catch myself. Usually, when I think that I'm being clever,
Mm-hmm.
it's when I'm being the stupidest. So now, whenever I think, oh, you good thinking or good job, and then in 99% of the situations, later it turns out that I misinterpreted something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's very
Yeah,
common. Like, yeah, and
yeah. And now when I think, oh, how clever, I just stop and say, no, 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 no.
and that's yeah. I mean that's the way you can do it, but it's also like it's important not to beat on yourself too hard because I mean other people are gonna tell you when you make mistakes just fine. It's not necessary
Yeah.
to just beat yourself over the head with it.
And
No, go on.
it's tiring to just, I don't know, wake up one day and entirely happy and
Mm-hmm.
with where I am, just have a perspective that I would like to that perspective. I mean, have a positive outlook on life, because I realize that a lot of the things that happen in my life are completely up to me. So if I think that someone won't like me, they end up not liking me because
Yeah, because you give
I
them a
don't.
negative first impression, and
Yeah,
then that
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And then when I don't think that people will judge me or that people will make fun of me, or I don't know, where my insecurities are asleep, that's when I make great friendships. That's
Mm-hmm.
when I have a lot of fun with people and have a lot of fun with myself in general. It all depends. It's just a bit tiring to just keep switching between
For sure.
good and bad all the time.
Do you see a pattern in like let's say this is just completely random. You wake up tomorrow. What kind of day do you think you're gonna have tomorrow? Like, can you predict when you're gonna have a bad day or?
Uh, Tomorrow, I think I'll have a pretty busy day tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I will not have any time to think about anything, and it will probably be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that sometimes my mood depends on how other people treat me.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes a really small detail can make complete change in how my day goes and in my mood.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if it's somebody that's important to me or it isn't, or it's just something that I a thought that just comes into my head about I don't know, about somebody that might I just interpret some conversations and then I start thinking about something,
Mm.
and that can have has the power to just completely
Yeah, ruin your
change.
day for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I cannot control
Mm-hmm.
entirely, especially if it's with people that are really close to me. Sometimes it happens with my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
It used to happen with my boyfriend. It's almost never with my family. I don't know why, but my family, I don't know. It's we have a stable relationship, and I don't usually have that kind of on off thing when it comes to them. But with all of the others it does, and that's something that I'd like to have more control over, not to let myself be so overwhelmed, because
Mm-hmm.
most of the times those are stupid things. It's not something that should really have the power to completely ruin my day.
Mm-hmm. Um. So when you say like you don't get this with your family, do you have an idea of why that is?
Maybe it's because I'm completely sure about what they think about me and
Mm-hmm.
how they see me. Maybe it's that security.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So
That's
you think it's like it's
the most
because you have a better understanding of like how they interact with you, so you're less uncertain about when they say like some kind of comment. You don't really think about it as much because you understand what they're saying.
Yeah, that's part of the reason, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, it's my brother. I know he loves me. He doesn't make fun of me, and it's just the way it is. For example, so if he says something, I won't get offended,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a joke or whatever. I know that it comes from a place of love
Mm-hmm.
because it's my brother with whom I have a good relationship with. And then if it's my best friend, for example, I know I've been best friends with her for I don't know 5 years or even more, and I mentioned at the beginning that she's like family, but
Mm-hmm.
it sometimes happens, and then I just when I let myself stop for a moment and think, that's when I don't let myself get into that kind of negative thinking. But sometimes it gets the better of me,
Yeah.
and it does manage to ruin my day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to have more control over how I feel,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it's impossible
Yeah,
to
I mean,
achieve.
you can't like we that's the thing about emotions. We can't directly control how we feel, but the thing we can do is like try to better um, regulate our behavior to control how we feel. Like that's something I learned a lot of when I was really depressed. It's like you are your own worst enemy when you're depressed because you start isolating yourself socially. You talk less with people, which means your social skills get worse. Your need for social interaction rises, and you get more desperate to talk with anyone. So like definitely, if you get into this situation where let's say it's your best friend who says something and you're like you didn't catch yourself, and now there's a thought at the back of your head going like, wait, what did she really mean by this? It's okay to like contact her and say, "Hey, what did you mean by this?" Like, that's
I
it.
do
Might it?
that. I do that.
Yes. So let's like if you do that, does the like do the negative thoughts go away or?
Yeah, they do. But maybe my best friend wasn't a good example because somewhere deep down I know
Mm-hmm.
that that's just in my head. But the real problem happens when it's with people that I'm not so close with.
Mm-hmm.
And when I don't feel I'm not comfortable asking that kind of questions
Yeah, for
to
sure.
other people. So that's when I can't get a feedback,
Mm-hmm.
that's when it's the worst because with my best friend I can say whatever I want and I don't think about how will she perceive it. I mean I do sometimes, but it's not the same as it is with people that I'm not so close with.
For sure.
So that's where the problem is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when it's the most difficult to control that kind of stuff. That I have been in situations where I have stopped contact with people
Mm-hmm.
altogether. But if those people made me feel insecure, I'm aware of the fact that maybe I do it sometimes as well. Maybe I say I'm sarcastic and I have a funny sense of humor and I make jokes about myself as well. But sometimes I make a joke about someone
Mm-hmm.
that's hurtful and I don't understand it immediately because I didn't want to hurt anybody with
Yeah,
the
of
joke.
course. Like
So I
most of the time
understand.
when we hurt people, it's not like intentional. It's
Yeah. And that's why I understand that if somebody says something, it might not be directly meant to hurt me or
mm-hmm.
to humiliate me, because I know that I also do that unintentionally. But it's just the scale. Is it or is it not?
Mm.
I I can't I don't know because that's just faith in your own opinion.
Yeah, of course. Like
Yeah.
it's
So
faith in your own
some
judgment. Like to
yeah.
did I understand this correctly? Which that's hard when you have a negative self-esteem because
Yeah.
you can probably like agree to this completely. You are your own worst enemy with poor self-esteem because you start to imagine the worst. Like when there's an unclear comment, you will, if you're in a period of bad self-esteem, you will take that comment in the worst possible way you can imagine.
And what could I do to make it better? I mean, what could I do to work on my self-esteem? What
Yeah,
could I do?
so like this thing with your self-esteem being very reliant on interactions with other people. That's something that you probably need to look at because ideally, and obviously this isn't 100% possible, but the idea is that your self-esteem should be, internal. It's something you have about yourself. It's not how other people view you. Because you're gonna be like at the end of the day, you're gonna meet thousands of people, and you're gonna get thousands of different opinions about who you are and how you are. But ultimately, like to you, the only opinion that should like truly
Matter.
matter is your own. Like because you are the person living inside your brain, and you're the person who has to live with himself every day.
The sad thing is that I think that I was actually way stronger emotionally when I was younger
Mm-hmm.
because I remember perfectly. I remember my prom, and I didn't have a date for the prom, but it was kind of my own fault
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't even know if I was going to go to the prom. So then I decided to walk alone in front of the entire town because where I live, we have like something like a runway show all of the the people, the students that going from. And I decided that I would go alone. And I remember walking alone amongst all of the couples and thinking, okay, this is not such a bad thing for the end of high school
Mm-hmm.
because I just need to learn that I will always have myself, no matter how many people around me there are. I always have to rely on myself. And I truly believe that. And I didn't feel bad about going to the prom alone because it was my decision
Mm-hmm.
back at that time. And now I could never do
Yeah,
that.
I mean
I
that's
could never do
understandable.
that now.
And I think
And
like
yeah,
you brought it up like it's you and it's your opinion that matters, and that's really good. But the thing that to be wary of is like, and I'm on my own. That's a very difficult one to get like out of your head once you're, convinced of that. I would be very careful with that
Yeah,
because you're not on your own. Like you have friends, you have family, you
yeah,
have people who understand you.
that's not what I meant. It's just because maybe it's because I'm speaking in English, so
Oh
I'm
yeah,
finding
okay.
I'm struggling to find a proper word. But what I wanted to say is that I will always have myself,
Mhm.
and even if I don't have anyone else, that should be enough.
Yeah, that's okay.
Again, I'm not explaining
No,
this, but
I think I understand you. Like ultimately, the only person you need is yourself. I can understand that.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That was me 8 years ago, and now I don't feel like I have taken a step forward, but
Mhm.
backwards, because as I mentioned, I cannot imagine myself doing it again. This time around, I think I would be mortified, and if I was thinking the same thing I was back then, I would tell myself, "You're just rationalizing this to make yourself not feel miserable." I
Yeah.
wouldn't really believe it.
Ooh, but that's another thing. Like you're rational. Like to take that word, like you're rationalizing it to make yourself not feel miserable. Is that a bad thing?
Hmm. I used to think it wasn't, but now it kind of switches between
Hmm.
I'm just I know that everybody has a different reality, and everybody, I don't know, for me and for you, two things might be I don't know, we could think completely different. We could have completely different opinion
Yeah, yeah.
opinions
Different
and
understandings of reality. That's.
yeah. And it would be fine for you and for me to just live in our own world, if I can say it like that.
Hmm.
But before I didn't even I wouldn't stop and think about it. But now it's just like comparing who is right and who is wrong. you know?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that's when
and I mean,
yeah, it's
who's wrong about your self-image? Like you're the only person who really gets to decide how you feel about yourself.
yeah, I forget about it sometimes.
Yeah, and
I
that's normal.
really do.
I do too. Like, I'm not trying to tell you like this is, 100% way to live and everyone should be able to do this. It's hard. It's, it's a process. It's something you learn, and once you've learned it, it's something you need to maintain. Like, proper
Yeah.
self-care is very important to maintaining self-esteem.
Yeah. But when the area of life where my self-esteem gives me the biggest problems is relationships, because
Mhm.
I see that I have a certain pattern in relationships
Mhm.
where I'm afraid of showing vulnerability. And I was in a relationship for about a year and I couldn't bring myself to say I love you. I know
Mhm.
that's a problem. I know it really is a problem, because I would rather hide all of my emotions, and I would rather that somebody thinks that I'm a psychopath, not literally,
Yeah, like
but
you're
I will.
a person without emotions, basically.
Yeah, yeah, that's the persona that I create, that I try to create.
Mhm.
And I realize that I keep making the same mistakes and that I do not know how to fix it. I mean, somewhere deep down, I do know how to fix it. It's just be more open. And
Yeah, that's
I
that
don't,
just part. It's not easy, and I think you know that too.
yeah, yeah, because there's a lot of factors there. And that's something that I would really love, 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 love to change.
Mhm.
But sometimes I don't know how,
Mhm.
because I have I do the same thing over and over again, and I realized that I have hurt some people unintentionally. I had the opportunity to talk with one of my with an ex of mine, and when we sat down and talked, I just realized that the entire time I thought that he was the one that hurt me more, but I realized I was the one hurting myself with my own ideas that I was
Mm.
making in my head. And but the truly and really the person that was hurtful was I.
Mm.
And that revelation wasn't enough for me to change, and that's what it hurts. It's not so much about me. It's about other people because sometimes I hurt somebody unintentionally because that's like a defense mechanism or whatever. And I did it again a
Mhm.
week ago. Maybe. I did it again. I did the same thing again. And that's something that I can't stop thinking about.
Mhm.
And I can't bring myself to just figure out a way to not do it again. To not
So I think there's a really important thing you brought up yourself just now. Like, you talk about like you end up hurting other people as a self-defense mechanism, which is, that's normal. Like, we react to things sometimes, and the way we react is not ideal. So something that I think would be really good for you is to figure out, well, okay, what do I do if I end up hurting other people? Like, how do I deal with that? How do I talk with them afterwards if I've hurt someone? How do I recognize that? And how do I make sure I don't get stuck in thinking about how I've hurt them? Because the really important thing to someone you've hurt is like acknowledge it, and
Mhm.
if you can, then it's something you if you want, so you can try to work to get better about it. But ultimately, we you probably experience this too. People get hurt all the time. It's more about how we deal with it, like how we talk with the people we've hurt about it. How do we approach them after we've hurt them?
I have realized that I have an unhealthy perspective
Mhm.
on relationships. Where is it? I constantly have the need for some kind of approval. So I'm tactical
Mhm.
and almost scheming. I don't know how. I don't like that part of myself, but I need, for example, I need some. If just to explain it, I need to be given something to give something in return. So I'm not in other relationships I'm the opposite of that. But when it comes to relationship, it's like the romantic relationships, it's like I'm a completely
Mhm.
different person.
Do you have an like? Do you like? Do you think you have an idea why that is? Like, why do you act that way in relationships compared to like your normal friendships?
Maybe because I'm scared of being hurt, and with friends I'm not as scared
Do you think
because
it's
that's
because you're afraid like it's not mutual, the relationship?
not just that it's not mutual, but I'm afraid that if I let go of those habits of mine,
Mhm.
that I will end up being hurt, that the other person will lose interest. And if I show how I really am, because with friends I'm giving, and I don't think about, I forget about ego and everything if I'm close with somebody. But in relationships, ego is it's the main character
Mhm.
of the relationship. And that's something that's difficult to change because not I don't always have the relationship, that kind of relationship with somebody that I could openly talk about it. I have had the opportunity to do so, but it was with a person which was spent more than a year with.
Mhm.
So when we talked about it, it some time has passed, so it was different, and we could talk openly about it. For example, I think that I have made the same mistake again, and now I don't know how to start talking about it.
Mhm.
How to, because sometimes I don't know, the other person won't tell you that they have been hurt. So
Yeah,
if I
of
say,
course.
yeah, so if I say I've hurt you, then I'm still in a position when I'm kind of above that person. I don't want to say it like that. I have hurt you. I would like to make that person tell me or show me so that they feel that we're equal,
Mhm.
because if I just assume that I have hurt that person, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I didn't, maybe it's
Mhm.
just all in my head. So I can't just openly say, hey, I know I hurt you because I don't know. I think, but I can't be sure. So that's what confuses me because
Mhm.
I don't always have the opportunity to just ask openly, did I do something wrong? Or I know exactly what I did wrong. I'm sorry for that. Oh, it's tricky.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
really.
yeah. I mean, and like this is like the very core of human relationships. Is like so when an interesting thing to like pick up on here is like, have you had experiences like this with your friends when you weren't certain if you've hurt them, and if so, like how did you deal with it in those situations?
I did have that kind of situations, and with my I would just openly I would just explain everything. I would explain why I felt like that, and
Mhm.
why I thought that, and I would just ask, okay, maybe it's all in my head, but if I hurt you, I'd like to know, and I would like you to know that it wasn't intentionally, and then we would just talk it through, and sometimes I was right, sometimes I wasn't,
Mhm.
but it turned out fine in the end. But I make a huge difference between different kinds of relationships,
Yeah,
and
that's normal.
maybe that's yeah, maybe that's why I can act the same,
Mhm.
because I act completely differently.
Yeah, like I think you expressed this earlier. It's like when you're in a relationship, you're very afraid of them, like finding out who the real you is. Can you try to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, because I have um I don't know, I have this opinion. I
Mhm.
don't know if it's an opinion or it's something just common. I don't know if it's between my group of friends or is it the people around me or my society. I don't know. That basically I don't know if you have heard about that book that's called Why Men Love Bitches.
I think
You
I've
know,
heard about it. Yeah.
I haven't read it, but that's something that explains it. That
Mhm.
basically that you have to be a bitch,
Mhm.
or you can't be vulnerable if you want somebody to keep being interested in you.
Mhm.
And if I'm outside of a situation, and if a friend of mine would come to me with the same state of mind, I would explain all the reasons why I think that's wrong.
Mhm.
But when it comes to me, it's like that's
Yeah,
stronger
you've
than me.
internalized it. It's
Yeah.
it's not something you can advise yourself out of. So that's probably one thing that I would definitely try to work on is try to acknowledge like your romantic partners are not going to be the same. They're not the same person. They're not the same, background. They're not necessarily all interested in the same thing. Maybe you have like had partners that were like the guys in the books, but you know, guys are
Yeah.
people too, and you know, they're very they want different things, and that's another thing to keep in mind in a relationship is like to figure out, okay, I have these wants and these needs. What wants and needs do the other person have, and how do we make sure both of us get what we need at the very least?
Yeah. It's sometimes difficult to think like that, but
Yeah, of course.
uh, I usually somebody that likes to generalize and to just put people in different
Hmm.
boxes, labels, and I have just realized that that's exactly what I was doing, and it's not who I am. At least I think it's not who I am in general, but
Hmm.
it's just that's a small segment of I don't know. It brings out I feel like it brings out the worst in me. Maybe I'm exaggerating. I don't know, but based on previous experiences, I mean, it wasn't. It's not all bad. It's not like I'm coldest. I'm the coldest person alive. But there are some areas where I feel I need to improve in order to
Hmm.
actually be in a healthy relationship. Because even when somebody is really trying, as I mentioned, I need a shows of affection. I need
Yeah.
to always be the one that cares less. So
Hmm.
I feel like more in love than the other person. That's when I close the doors. That's when I start acting differently. That's when the cold person arrives, and
Hmm.
that's where I pretend like I don't care. And I don't know why I do it so much, and it's always the same with all my relationships. It starts out by the 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 guy trying to get to know me or whatever, and it's just as a way of comparison, the guy's the one that is trying to conquer me or whatever. I don't know how to explain
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's a very
And
normal
then
like cultural like explanation
yeah,
of relationships.
yeah, and then can't be like that all the time. you have to, I mean, it has to evolve, it has to
Mm.
change. And then for a while, I let myself go, and then I just tell myself, okay, don't do the same. Each Not every guy is an asshole, because I haven't even had even a bad experience with somebody so that could say that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have someone treat me wrong, or I didn't have somebody, I don't know, do something that would make me feel this way. So that's why I don't know why I even think about things like that.
I mean,
And then,
the book you brought up is probably a good example. If like if the culture you're in and like the whole like the social circle around you treats
yeah,
relationships this way, it's very easy to be affected by that and to start to shape the way you view relationships around that too.
yeah,
But
it's so
I was gonna
ingrained.
sorry, I was gonna ask, like, um have you ever talked with a potential partner about this cycle, like going into the relationship, everything's going fine, and then the colder person starts coming out the further you go into the relationship? Is this something you've talked with a partner about before?
No, I haven't talked about. I did talk about my relationship, about our relationship. We did talk about those phases in our relationship,
Mm,
but it was just talking about specific situations.
mm,
For example, I acted like this because I was jealous, and then I said I act like this because I thought you didn't care. So those were specific situations that we were discussing. We weren't discussing it in general. We weren't talking about relationships in general. So I
mm.
never had a conversation like that with a partner. I never had a conversation like that. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I mean it's
I,
worth like talking with someone and figuring it out. It's like it's a good thing to have established for a partnership. It's like, what do I look like on my worst days? That's a very important thing for your partner to know, because then they're not as scared when a day comes and you're being really cold and you're you know maybe it's been a bad day, so you have a really bad self-esteem issue that day. So like they're
uh,
not necessarily as scared when that happens. They're prepared, and you've given them the tools they need to say, okay, she's having a bad day. This is not how it's going to be forever. If I'm able, maybe we can work this out. That's a very important thing in a partnership.
I'm usually not that honest about that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, when I explain stuff like that, it's me creating a persona. So, for example, I'm trying to think of an example. For example, I told one of my exes that I when I break up with somebody, I break up for good.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lie. I don't know why I told that. Probably because I wanted him to think that back at that time. And then when he became my ex, we kept in touch because we split up on good terms.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he asked what happened with your policy, the one that you said that once you break up with somebody, you break up for good. And then I just said it was a lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like especially common for people with poor self-esteem. I do that a lot too. Like we create narratives about ourselves, and then we just kind of
Yeah,
try to live out those narratives instead of figuring out who are we actually, and,
yeah, but
how
it's
do we want to be
easier.
treated.
It probably would be easier to just be honest, I guess.
I mean, being honest is hard. That's why not everyone does it, and being completely honest all the time is it's basically impossible, because sometimes you feel like this is not a situation I'm comfortable enough to be honest in. But that's an important thing to just say too. Like I don't feel like I can tell you the truth because I'm not comfortable. That's that's an honest statement. It's not telling the whole truth, but it's explaining why I can't be honest with you. That's fine too. That's something you can say.
Yeah, and probably think less about playing games and looking at relationships as if it was, I don't know, game over, or I have two or three lives left,
Mm.
or I don't know, passing levels.
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
think something I got introduced to early on, or like a long time ago, is like the idea of see your partnership as like a very, very close friendship, basically. because
Mm-hmm.
that's to be friends with someone for a long time, you need to have certain things established between you, like how when we joke, how far do we go? Um, when we hurt each other, how do we react to that? That's like very very important skills to have, established in a partnership as well.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
a relationship isn't like chasing the other person. It's someone you like and you spend time with them because you like them. You know, hopefully
yeah.
the other person likes you too, and you kind of go from
The,
there.
pro- the problem with me is that I basically understand all of that, and I feel like I already know that. But when it comes to myself, I
Hmm.
forget about those things.
Yeah, and that's normal. Like I I know I used to do that a lot too, and I think a lot of people do, especially if you're someone with poor self-esteem, because then you're trying to prove to yourself that you're worthy of a partnership, which is that's a really toxic thing to think.
Yeah, it is, and that's something that I don't exactly know how to change.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what specific thing I should do to change that. Is it working on myself? Is it I don't know
Yeah, that's
what is
hard.
it?
Um, I think I have a few things you might want to try at least, like going forward with that. So one thing to do is be completely open with your partner that you are a person who needs a lot of validation, and that's something you need in a partnership to feel comfortable. That's just something to prepare them for. It's like if you're having a bad day, what you need of them is to be validating and to say, listen, I love you. It doesn't matter that they have a bad day. I will, just because you've had a bad day, that doesn't mean you are unworthy of my attention and love. We're not partners because you're better than me. We're partners because we like each other. Like establishing that kind of relationship where you feel like I don't have to compete. I don't have to be good to be worthy of, my partner. It's not how partnerships work.
Yeah, you're right. When I think about it, you really are.
Hmm.
You really are right.
I because I remember I used to be there too. That's how I did it a lot.
Yeah, I just I'm thinking about I'm processing what you
Hmm.
said because I had a completely different perspective on relationships. What you described is what I always want to achieve but
Hmm.
failed.
Yeah, and I mean that's the relationships are all different, but ultimately, like a relationship is, I wouldn't say just, but like it's a thing between two people who are like feeling beings in the body experiencing the world, and we're different people who have different needs and desires, and a good relationship could be one that acknowledges that.
So I'll try to be smarter next time and try to really pay attention to what triggers me to act the way I do,
Hmm.
the way I act, so that then when I see it, I don't do it again.
Yeah, or like this is really important. If you do it, acknowledge it and then tell your partner, like, I fucked up. I had a really bad thought and did a really bad thing. I'm really sorry. Can we please try to move forward from this? Like, it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. We all
Yeah,
have like bad days. It's just kind of how we deal with them.
yeah. The last time I did something like that, I knew that it was up to me, that I was the one that had to make the next
Hmm.
to make the move because um I screwed up. So I was still expecting for that person, for the other person to show some initiative so that I would get the validation and then feel comfortable
Hmm.
confessing that I was wrong. And in the end, I decided that I would be the one giving the first step, but I didn't directly do it.
Hmm.
I was subtle about it. And then when I didn't get the feedback that I wanted because the person was obviously hurt or angry with me, or I don't know, has been processing their own emotions
Mhm.
when they didn't show the same level of affection they always did. I couldn't say I'm sorry. I couldn't say I was wrong.
Mhm.
I just got back to being a sassy person,
Yeah.
basically basically a bitch. So I out of that insecurity, I made it look as if I didn't care. I basically said this is tiring to me. This conversation is tiring me, which is something I did in order to seem like somebody that's not hurting.
Mhm.
Uh, that's
Yeah, yeah. It's the
that's not
defensive
being.
response. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I did it again, and I keep doing it again. It gets the better of me each time, even though I'm aware of my mistakes.
Mhm.
I keep doing the same thing.
Mhm.
It's 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 kind of it's as if it was stronger than me because it just gets over me. That feeling overwhelms me, and I just forget about everything I
Mhm.
was thinking about moments before, and it's like somebody else is controlling me, not myself.
Yeah, that's very normal with like if you're in a low self-esteem situation and you get someone does something that you feel hurts you, then you kind of go on autopilot. You go into your shell, you go into defense mode, and say, okay, how do I deal with this to get out of the situation as soon as possible? That's my response, at least if I'm in a really bad state of mind. And
Yeah, but
if you're a
how do
bitch,
I
people go away.
change it? Yeah, but how do I change that? I don't know. Because I'm aware of what I'm doing,
Hmm.
but I don't know how to change it.
Yeah.
Because I
So I would say like working on your self-esteem is probably like the thing that's going to help you most, because if you get into a situation like that again with a good
yeah
sense of self-esteem, you're going to be able to say, okay, this person didn't react the way I wanted to, this didn't really give me what I want, but I'm in a good enough state of mind to say, well, maybe that's, it's probably not because they want to hurt me. There's probably something else going on, so I will use my free will to say, okay, listen, I need something else out of this interaction. Can you please try to show this to me, or otherwise just tell me why you can't give me that right now? Because like the thing with better self-esteem is that it will let you be more in control of your interactions in that case, and you'll be more able to say, okay, I recognize that what I'm doing right now isn't helping. Can I try something else? That would be a very normal response when you know you're in a better place.
yeah, and it might help if I didn't feel personally attacked, if I didn't take everything personally.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
think that, yeah, that's the best way is just to solve the problem and not the consequences,
Hmm.
not to deal with not to think about the consequences, but just try and solve the actual problem, which is low self-esteem. Because I usually forget that other people that I interact with have the same issues,
Yeah, they're
and then
people just like you. Yeah.
I completely forget that
And
most.
that's completely normal. Like if you that's the only way to live, because you don't live inside other people's heads, so you don't really know what they're thinking. And the best you have to go off is how they act. But if you have a low sense of self-esteem poisoning your mind, telling you what they're doing is because I'm not worthy of their attention, you're already off to a really bad start.
Yeah, it's very toxic.
Exactly.
I feel like it's toxic. Yeah.
So if there's something you want to try, if you like ever have an episode of really poor self-esteem where you catch yourself thinking, this thing that someone else did is because either I'm a bad person or I fucked up so badly that I deserve this. Try to turn that around in your head. Just try to say the completely opposite thing. Like think the completely opposite. It's like, well, maybe they did this because they had a bad day. Maybe um, what they're doing is actually not something I deserve, but it's something that happens because they had a bad day, because they have poor self-esteem. Don't necessarily think they have poor self-esteem, but like try to remove how you feel about the situation from how you react to it.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah,
It's
and
really
it's really
difficult.
hard. Like, trust me, like it took me about 4 years to get to where I am today, and I still have really bad days sometimes.
Yeah, but that's human to have a bad day sometimes,
Yeah, of
but
course.
to just keep making the same mistakes and be aware that you're making a mistake and still not being able to transform that situation into something better,
Hmm.
that's when it's a problem. And for me, it is.
Yeah,
It is a problem.
and
And
like
we've
to be absolutely clear about this, this is not an easy thing to solve. Like there's a reason that therapy is a thing that exists. It's like this is stuff that we've tried to figure out for thousands of years, how the human mind works, enough to say, well, you have poor self-esteem, so this is what you got to do to fix it. Nobody has like cure for low self-esteem.
I've tried finding books that would help me.
Hmm.
I'm not really into self-help books
I can
because
understand that.
the ones that I've read are just I feel like they're generic
Hmm.
and they don't really focus on the problem. They just focus on, I don't know,
It's symptom
telling
treatment,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, symptom treatment, and it's just scratching just the surface.
Hmm.
So I try and I like to read about certain topics, and I also try to find books, novels that where you can read between the lines so that
Hmm.
you don't feel like you're reading about or studying, but when you just come to that conclusion yourself.
Hmm.
And also I don't know, I've read about psychology and books about psychology, and try to find resources, but I read something and I realize that I understand what I should do, but I end up doing nothing because once I understand that,
Hmm.
I feel, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm not that bad, or I got this. That's the biggest mistake when I think, yeah, I got this, and then I just realize, no, no, idiot, you don't,
Yeah, I mean,
because
understanding it on a theoretical level is not the same as like, okay, I'm just gonna do this from now on. It's not how that works.
yeah, because I do not apply it.
Hmm.
I understand something. It's not the same thing. Um, knowing how to draw in theory and drawing something.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the same thing at all.
So it's as if I was watching a tutorial on how to draw and just thinking, oh man, this is easy, and then never trying to draw a thing in my life.
Yep.
That's basically what I do when it comes to reading. And I through talking with you, I just realized that I have to focus more on this and not forget it. For example,
Yeah.
not forget about this tomorrow, for example, but
Yeah,
just
like
to
let
be
it
aware.
let it be a thing you're actually working on. Like you mentioned like you've worked on other stuff before. Let this be a project that you're working on for a while. See what
Yeah.
works and see what doesn't work.
But the problem is that when I in the past when I did work on some stuff, it was because I felt like I have hit rock bottom.
Hmm.
So that's what that was what has driven me to just do something, because I when you reach a point when you feel, okay, I'm either gonna die, not literally, but when you feel I can't do this
Hmm.
anymore, either that or try and change something. That's when I get that drive to change. And the situation I'm in right now, it's
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle, as I explained. So it's even more difficult to just focus on that because, as I mentioned, these things aren't something that I think about
Hmm.
and that I'm aware about on a daily basis. It's just something that comes back from time to time. And I've tried writing a journal, but it's if I have a few good days, then I completely forget,
Hmm.
or I get really busy and I completely forget, and then I just have a journal with just the negative parts. And just focusing on the negative parts, because when I remember to write down, to sit down and write down just when I'm feeling terrible, and then that wasn't the reason why I started it. I just wanted to see, do I feel bad more often
Mhm.
or do I feel good? But when I forget about all of the days that to write about the positive stuff because I don't feel the need
Yeah,
to write.
that makes sense. That's very normal.
Yeah,
Like we don't
yeah,
need to, our brain is like basically designed to remember negative stimulus because we want to avoid that. And when
yeah,
things are going okay, then we're just doing okay. We don't really think about it.
yeah. But are there some books that you recommend, or I don't know, any literature or anything,
I'm
or
trying
a
to
website,
think.
or
Like, if have you ever read about cognitive behavioral therapy before?
yes,
Yeah,
not a lot, but I have.
like it's I would like that's a little bit of what helped me is like because the whole idea of cognitive behavioral therapy is like because you can't change your emotions, you try to change either what you do or how you think, and that's the way you can impact your emotions. Is like you do things that make you feel like you've accomplished something, so you build a better sense of self-esteem, and therefore, if you get into a situation where your self-esteem is tested, you're going to feel better about the way you react, like because you're not going to be as toxic, you're not going to be as like cruel to other people. So
That's
that
a
like
good.
that's right, definitely
That
one way to do it.
Yeah, that's a good start because I'm searching specific that I could focus on
Hmm.
because about it enough because I've done plenty of thinking, but when it comes to thinking, I so I'm for something that could guide me at least
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like
steps.
if another thing to like keep in mind is like when you're on a good day, those are the days where you need to like take some time to work on your mental health because that's where you're in a good state to do it. Like that's when you have the spare energy to say, well, okay, I know that when I'm in a really bad situation, I usually lash out at people. So I'm in a good mood today. This is something I want to work on. So try to figure out, well, okay, how should I behave in a negative situation, and then like some people go as far as like to try to role play out a scenario when they're really pissed and how they'd react, or if they're like really out there about it, they want to set it up with someone who they have had a negative interaction with and like basically reenact that and try to figure out, well, okay, how do I do this in a better way if this happens again in the future?
Yeah, because you're in a good state of mind.
Exactly, and that's
Very
when you can focus on it.
good idea.
So like if
Definitely
the
give.
problem is motivation, is try to tell yourself that, listen, I'm in a good state of mind now, I have some spare time and energy, this is when I should be working on it.
So I guess I'll be starting right away.
I mean, we're doing it right now, right? We're talking
Yeah,
about it, we're figuring it out.
yeah, and this is it's weird. It's kind of weird because as I mentioned before, I'm usually the one guiding
Mm-hmm.
the process. So it's also sometimes I feel like people that I talk to don't have the same level of understanding that I do. I don't blame them for that. It's just not everybody put themselves
Mm-hmm.
in another. There's a lot of people that give you advice based on their own experience,
Yeah, and you have to
and
keep in
that's
mind
not.
that's ultimately what I'm doing too. It's just I've talked with a lot of people, so I have a pretty broad perspective.
And on a scale of I don't know, 1 to 10, where am I with I don't know with the level of difficulty that I have? I feel like it's very low, which is why I don't focus
Mm-hmm.
or I don't think it's important. I don't like complaining or saying that I do have a problem because if I compare it to something, then I just come to the conclusion that
Yeah, that other people have it worse. That's also really
yeah,
toxic. Like it's just something everyone has to keep in mind. Is like everyone has problems, and everyone like goes through times where they're having trouble. The thing that like we need to keep in mind is that our problems are our own problems. Like you don't you shouldn't compare your problems to other people's problems because that's just going to make you miserable. Because there's always going to be someone who has it worse than you, but ultimately the worst thing you've experienced is the worst thing you've experienced. Like nobody can, just because someone is starving somewhere else, that doesn't mean your struggle is less valid or it's less important to deal with.
Yeah, but I've heard it that I kind of started believing.
Hmm.
I've heard that kind of comparison, especially that one
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mentioned.
If you probably had people say it's not so bad. It could be worse. It's like that's not
There are
a good
people dying.
perspective thing if you have low
There are
self-esteem.
people dying. Yeah, I've heard that sentence.
Yeah.
For example, people dying, and here you are complaining about having low self-esteem.
Oh yeah. I've heard that a
Yeah.
lot too. And like the thing to start to internalize is like the first part of like any good sense of self-esteem is the acknowledgement that you are a person with wants and needings and feelings and experiences, and some of those experiences are negative, and there's probably an experience you've had that ranks as the worst experience, and that's your scale. Like that's where you're coming from in dealing with the world, and nobody else can tell you that's wrong because they're
But
just another person with their experience.
um, you made me think, and I just how can I figure out what was the worst experience I had?
That's up to you. That's up to you to figure out, and depending on like where you are in life, that's gonna change. Like
Yeah.
because whatever you like, say you're going through a period where you're having a lot of really bad relationships, the worst experience you're gonna think back on is probably like your worst relationship ever. But if you're in a good situation for a while, but you're having a falling out with your friends, your worst experience is probably gonna be really bad falling out with your friends, and it's never gonna be like a stable thing you look back on all the time, probably. Which
There's
I mean,
some.
that's normal.
You have really given me a lot to think about.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, that's the idea, right? It's to keep you to get us both me and you thinking because I can't help people if I don't think about this stuff either. I can't
Yeah,
help
I
myself.
wanted to ask because I saw the post on Reddit, and I
Hmm.
just signed up without even asking too much
Yeah,
because I saw your account, and before I think I probably even we probably even texted or something like that, but it wasn't. I didn't send any problems. I think that I asked, "Do you have any problems?" or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like
That's
that.
that's a very common one, and I'm very thankful for that actually. Sometimes I do respond to those with like, yeah, if there's something going on, I'll say it.
Yeah, but I was wondering, will this be a part? What we're doing right now
Hmm.
will be a part of what? Is it a, I don't know, a project or what?
Yeah, like it's a personal project. Because what I've started to realize as I've had more voice conversations with people is that a lot of people just like appreciate the perspective of realizing, okay, the thing I'm going through is not like uniquely horrible to me. I'm not the only person who've ever experienced low self-esteem in their relationship like we've talked about today, or I'm not the only person who've experienced not being able to control myself in a situation where something bad happens. And not being alone with your experience is a very, very powerful thing in therapy because it helps you understand that, other people have lived through this. Maybe I can too.
What drives you to do this kind of work? Because usually
Hmm.
when people do something like that, I always think about where's the catch? What does this person want from me?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I don't
I can explain that
no,
completely.
I just wanted to finish before.
Yeah,
With
sorry.
you, I don't have that feeling at
Hmm.
all. That's why I didn't even ask, what is this? I just said, yeah, I'm in.
Hmm.
But what drives you to do that? I mean, it can be so draining sometimes. Focus on other people's problems and fixing other people, if
Hmm.
I can say so. I think that you need to be incredibly strong, even if you don't think that you are. You have to be incredibly strong to just I don't know, just receive, because people talk about the negative bits when they talk about their problems. So if you are surrounded by it all of the time, for me it was sometimes it was difficult to think positively if all I'm listening to are problems, worries. And for me, sometimes it's I need time out, and I can't be the same person always because I'm changing and my perspectives are changing. So I'm asking this because sometimes I feel like I'm not strong enough to be doing this
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and I feel like I couldn't be doing it all the time, and I couldn't dedicate my time as much to do what basically what you're doing, and you're not doing it with friends or family, or you're doing it basically with strangers that you
Mm-hmm.
that you meet online.
Yeah, I mean, the way this started out for me is like around 5 to 6 years ago, when I was at my very very worst. I wouldn't say it was like actively suicidal, but I was in the state of I don't really want to be alive anymore. I don't want to deal with being alive anymore. I reached out to an anonymous stranger and I kind of talked with them for a while, and I realized, holy hell, relating this to another person, even if they've not necessarily experienced it, but like being able to tell them, this is what I'm going through. I'm in a really messed up state of mind. Could you just please listen to what I'm saying? That was a very, very powerful thing for me. And I realized that's probably what a lot of people need. Like, because there's people all over the world with all kind of all kinds of trouble or problems, and some of them are like you in that they're the person in the friend group that other people go to, but they don't have anyone to talk with themselves, or they're in the situation like they're socially isolated for some reason or another, or they've had an experience or done something they really don't feel comfortable sharing with anyone because they fear the consequences. So this is kind of like figuring out, well, if that helped me going from wanting to die to being like reasonably stable and having a life that I would say is happy, how much could that help other people? That's just so I started the account kind of on a whim, and
Mhm.
talked to the first few people and figured out, well, I mean, this is not so bad. Most of it, like half the time at the start, it was just like kind of silly messages. Then I got people talking about, well, I'm worried about my exam and I haven't really prepared. What do I do about that? Well, you can do this and this. You can say, like, listen, if I know I'm going to fail, then prepare for that and say, okay, I'm probably not going to pass this class, so what do I do about that? And try to put things into perspective for people. And then just kind of, the more I've done it, the more I've like grown my own perspective and come to understand that people are very similar in the sense that we're all beings that sense the world around us, and based on that we build our understanding of reality. So if we've had like generally good life, then when something that might seem minor to someone else hits us, it hits really hard. That's something I've had to struggle with a lot. Like, the reason I got into a really bad state of mind is kind of silly. I was falling behind on my exams, and that's when it started to spiral. But so
Yeah,
it's the
but
tiniest things that can set you off, and it varies a lot for people. And
that's exactly what it
yeah.
is as well. It's small detail that revealed a whole set of problems, issues, and usually the smallest, the stupidest detail
Mm-hmm.
that reveals.
Yeah, and then I worked from there and figured, like, I mean, if I could get that much out of just a short one-on-one conversation with a stranger for like 5 minutes, then what couldn't that do for other people? So that's kind of like how I ended up volunteering. I think it's about 5 hours a week, maybe a little more on some days. I just kind of post on Reddit, and then when people send me messages, I respond to them. Sometimes it's over voice. Sometimes it's just in text messages. Sometimes I have done video calls with a few people. It's not that often, but some people just prefer being able to see the one they're talking to.
On the other hand, I don't know if I would be able to speak openly,
Mm-hmm.
as open as I did if this was a video. And at the beginning, it was, I don't know. Since I'm not used to talking about my problems,
Mm-hmm.
it was, it's a new experience, and it has definitely motivated me doing it. And because I just realized it's not that bad. Because when I listen to somebody, I don't judge them. I try to help them, and
Hmm.
I just realized that it will be the same if I'm on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, people are not mean or evil. Generally, like if you're their friend, they want to help you. They might not know how to help you, but they'll try. And trying is a lot of like knowing that someone else is trying to help you. That's a big help in and of itself.
Yes, yes. Even if they
Even if they don't know, just like that, if they listen to you and you're having a bad day, that helps a lot of people.
really thing that I've learned tonight,
Hmm.
that even I'm just thinking about what I mentioned before, that I had the need to punch people in the face when they would tell me just go outside.
Hmm.
I was really depressed, and I just now realized that it wasn't personal. I was I used to think it was because they didn't even want to understand, but maybe they just never felt like that. It
Yeah,
was something they don't have any experience with, and maybe that was really something that they thought would help.
yeah. I mean,
But
if you're the person they usually go to with their problems, they don't really have. That's a thing to keep in mind. They might not even have like perspectives for what kind of help do you need because they've never had to help you before.
the guide.
Yeah. All right. I think Meg, I think that's everything on my end. If there's something else you want to say, now is the time to say it.
Just thank you, I guess. And I signed up for this wanting to. I signed up for this not wanting to just share the stories, because when I did this, it was more to share my story so that it would be easier for other people. But I ended now I have the conclusion that I got a lot more out of it than just that. So that's thank you, I guess,
Yeah,
for
you're welcome.
for if you ever need anything, any kind of help, or I don't know, if you want, you can PM me your worries.
I
So
will
that
keep you in mind. I have like my own support network, but I mean, you've heard some things that not everyone knows about me tonight. So that I mean that I may well just end up contacting you at some point.
I would really like that. I'm not just saying it to be polite. I
Hmm.
really mean it. And I guess that would be it. And I figured I think that I did learn a few things, and you did open my eyes for some things, changed my perspective. And I really did listen. I usually just don't actively listen to people. I just say yes, 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 but
Mm.
I don't really think about what they say. So this conversation has really given me plenty to think about, and it really was motivating,
Yeah, I mean, if
because
if you
I
want, we can revisit that at some point in the future and see like, well, what have you been doing since then? Like, have you experienced improvements, or is there something else you want to talk about this time? Or
something like a follow up.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, okay.
So have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
I guess we'll be in touch.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably be in touch again. I can imagine. So, thank you so much.
Bye.
Uh,
Mm.
this has been a very interesting experiment. This is the first time I've like recorded and the voice conversations I had with people. So, thank you for being like my guinea pig for this test.
You're welcome.
All right. I wish you a good night, and I hope you've learned something to take with you.
I learned plenty.
All right. Great. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.